Welcome to Novelist Spotlight. This is Mike Consol, your host. Before we begin this episode, I want to alert you that my latest book is now available in both print and ebook formats. The title is Love American Style, and it is a collection of short stories about men, women, their passions, and their dysfunctions. There's a short link in the episode notes that will take you to my Amazon profile page, where all 4 of my books are listed. 3 novels in this new short story collection. Again, the title of the new one is Love American Style, named after the TV series that ran from 1969 until 1974. Now, on with our program. In the spotlight is repeat guest Marek Handzel, joining us from the greater London area of Britain. He is out with a new novel, his 6th. Yes, he is a productive, hardworking novelist, let me tell you. So he's already got 6 of them racked up. And this particular one is titled The Fragment from the Shroud. And between its title and the cover image, one immediately thinks of the Shroud of Turin. We'll get into that momentarily. But first, Marek, welcome to the program. Welcome back to the program.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Thanks for having me on again. Yeah, great to speak with you.
Likewise. So let's start, before we get to the fragment from the Shroud, let's start with just a very brief rundown of your previous works. And let's start with, as I said, there's 6 of them, including the fragment from the Shroud. Let's start with your first one, which was titled I Must Stay at Home.
Yeah, so I Must Stay at Home. That was I call it more a novella, sort of a shorter sort of novel. But
you sound just a little hesitant. Was this book was it a less than stellar rookie attempt, and things have gotten much better since then?
No, actually, so the Dojang was my first one, but I Must Stay at Home was, I think was the second one. I've sort of lost track of which one came out first, but there's a bit of confusion on timelines, especially on Amazon, because I think I changed the cover on the Dojang, so it sometimes comes up as having come out perhaps after I Must Stay at Home. But yeah, I mean, that's a good place to start. I mean, that's probably the quickest one I've ever written, actually. I just sat down and knocked it out in the first draft in a couple of weeks. And it's just about, the protagonist is a young man who, during the lockdowns, due to the measures taken during COVID-19, he's sort of very lost, alone. His girlfriend doesn't speak to him anymore. I think they split up before lockdowns happened, and he just sort of walks the streets at night, very confused. He's got nothing to do because his job is in limbo. He's on, as they called it here, when they used to pay people to stay at home and not have to work. I can't remember what the terminology is now, but the actual term. But yeah, he had nothing to do. He's very bored. So he's sort of reminiscing about his girlfriend and his where his life's going, and his father as well, who died of cancer, and he never got to see him because of the lockdown. So yeah,
it's very contemplative, kind of
absolutely.
Kind of contemplative novel about alienation and isolation.
Yeah, precisely. Yeah, and I think that there's sort of he goes on a sort of, it's a cliche, isn't it? It goes on a journey. I don't want to say that. he sort of gets a bit of a spark at hope at the end of it. But yeah, it's I'll leave it for any readers who want to or listeners who want to read it to find out what that is at the end. But it's very, very contemplative.
I should say also a timely novel, because there is a loneliness epidemic around the world. I know there is in the United States. And I think that's been going on in a lot of different places. So
absolutely, especially with young men. Especially with young men. Yeah. There's a lot of young men who don't have friends or don't feel that they can speak to people about things that really matter to them or are concerning them. And as we know, suicide rates are pretty high among young men as well. In Europe, certainly. I guess it's probably similar in the States, right?
It's everywhere. Yes. Yeah. So the Dojang, which is a martial arts novel, that's something we have in common. You've studied martial arts. I've studied martial arts. That's actually your first one.
That's right. Yeah.
Is the pronunciation, did I say it right? The Dojang?
I'm not entirely sure because I think it's a Korean, I'm pretty sure it's a Korean word. So, like you have dojo for karate
Yes.
training halls. So I'm not sure what the correct pronunciation is.
Okay.
It could be how you say it, Mike. It could be Dojang. I guess we used to call it Dojang. It's based, the idea came to me when I used to train in Taekwondo many years ago now, actually, over 12 years ago. I studied Taekwondo for 7, 8 years, something like that. And I did karate before that at university and at school. But it was it's a bit hard to explain in a quick nutshell. But essentially, the Dojang in the novel is the name of a vigilante group which originated in Poland under the Cold War. So after a lot of Poles spread out over Europe and into the States and elsewhere, Canada and Australia and all over the world, some of them took this vigilante group with them, the philosophy and the training behind it. And the idea was that they would sort out their own problems within the community by appealing to this vigilante group. But it's a kind of dying group now, and in the Dojang, it's the main character Piotr, which is Peter in Polish. He's based in London, and he's struggling to keep his vigilante group together because they're trying to change the whole ethos of the group and move away from fighting crime and just trying to make money from underground martial arts bouts and things like this. And he also has to deal with a Polish sort of mafia group as well during that story. So a bit of two dynamics going on there: him trying to keep the group together, and then also trying to fight crime himself. So yeah, it was a bit of an experimental one, but it's something I really wanted to write, and I quite enjoyed
Yeah,
it
yeah,
actually. I think a lot of people enjoy that kind of stuff, don't they? Vigilantes and
absolutely. Oh
uh,
yeah, my God, Death Wish, which was way back,
right.
the Bronson movie. I forget
Oh
what,
yeah,
what
yeah, yeah.
Charles
That's right. Yeah,
Bronson,
that's
and
right.
that was a huge hit because people were frustrated with crime, and it was like, yeah, we need more guys in the subways and on the streets like him, who turn the tables on these guys and teach him a lesson. Then comes Redemptio.
Yep.
Did I say that one right?
I would say Redemptio, but
Redemptio. There you go.
yeah.
Tell us about it.
Yeah, so well, this is based on the same group actually, the group of vigilantes, um, but it's based in Leeds, which is a city near me. I live in North Yorkshire in England, and Leeds is not too far from here, and essentially. It's about a car thief who is in a criminal gang that, apart from stealing cars, they also stage false accidents to claim money from insurance companies. So here we called it crash for cash. I don't know if it was a big thing um, in the States or
It
not,
was.
but yeah,
I
yeah.
think that has been quelled, but it was a big thing. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, and I used to cover this kind of stuff because I used to edit a magazine called Claims Magazine, which dealt with insurance claims of and personal injury claims, and Crash for Cash was a big thing at the time. This is sort of going back to between 2012 and 2017 that I sort of covered that beat, but uh, as a journalist. But yeah, it was so he's in this gang and he steals cars, but he's a bit disillusioned with life. Um, and he wants to essentially leave the criminal lifestyle and go straight, but he's got no idea how to do that because he's got no qualifications. He's come over from, I should say he's Polish. He's come over from Poland. He's in a foreign country. He's got no family. His only friends are in this criminal gang, and but he wants out and he wants to amend his life. And he gets offered a sort of a branch is extended to him by a lawyer who finds out about his crash for cash operation, who actually represents insurance companies in these claims. So he knows a lot about it. And this lawyer is also at nighttime a vigilante. So a bit like Piotr in the Dojang, he's the leader of a local Dojang in Leeds, a vigilante group. As I said, that originates from Poland, and the diaspora would set up these vigilante groups. And he takes him under his wing essentially, and he says, "I'll help you if you help me. So you give me some information about this criminal gang and what you've been up to, and I'll gently or try to ease you out and give you a pathway out of the criminal lifestyle." So yeah, it doesn't quite end as he wanted it to, but yeah, I really enjoyed writing that one actually as well because you get to have a lot of fun with some of the characters as well, which I like doing.
Well, Crime and Punishment from the fingertips of Marek Handzel. Um, but that was followed by Through Open Doors, getting
Yeah,
back to kind of isolation, alienation,
yeah.
loneliness,
Mhm.
and really a lot of trepidation about I could even do the summary on this one about a man who's apparently going into dementia, and having all kinds of struggles with that one. Really a
Yeah.
novella. That's a short read. It's an excellent book. I really enjoyed that one, Merrick. Go ahead though, and Through Open Doors. Did you have a family member, maybe even your father, who served as the spark for this?
Yeah, well, my grandmother, God bless her soul, who died. When did she die? I'm tempted to say 2007 or something, or six. No, it would have been 2008 or something along those lines. Anyway, she developed dementia, and I had a sort of first-hand experience of it because she lived near us, and we'd see her every day, and I sort of saw that slow decline in her mental faculties and how she kind of dealt with people and thought about her environment. So I guess that's probably the closest to it in terms of
Hmm.
a close family member. But yeah, no, you're right, Mike. It's yeah, the main character is sort of slowly well, he's got dementia to a certain degree, and he's very concerned that his family, his daughters, are trying to send him to a an old
Uh,
people's home,
yeah,
and
yeah.
he's worried he's going
Memory
to die there
care.
and get killed. Yeah, and he's heard all these horror stories about care homes, and he just doesn't want to go there, and so he tries to escape essentially. But the idea of Through Open Doors is that um, he keeps leaving his back door open and just wandering out of the house, and
And
not
not
quite
closing the
realizing.
door, right?
Yeah,
Coming
yeah,
back, and it's like, why
yeah.
is my door open?
Right, exactly. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, no, I'm glad you enjoyed that one. Actually, yeah, I very much enjoyed writing it as well. I guess it's quite difficult to put because it's written in the first person. It's quite hard to put yourself in that frame of mind, isn't it, when you're not actually in there? But yeah, it's yeah,
But
um,
I think the immediacy of the first person writing,
mm,
it puts you there.
yeah,
So
yeah,
I think that worked very well. Could have even worked in third person.
yes, yeah,
You know,
yeah.
but the execution was excellent. So
Oh, that's
I
good of
have
you to
no
say. That's very kind
quibble
of
with
you.
that. Then comes the Gaff, which I love that
Yeah.
title. It sounds to me like a Milan Kundera novel. Talk about the Gaff.
Yeah, so yeah, well, I don't know if you know or any listeners know, but in Britain we sometimes call houses gaffs. So it's a kind of slang word for a house or a home. Come round to my gaff for a cup of tea or whatever. Um, yeah, I'm not sure if it's a southern thing, a London thing, or all over the country. But anyway, it's yeah loosely based on my own experiences dealing with an inheritance in a house and the problems that come with it, and also just meeting interesting characters within the building trade because my father used to be a builder, so I know some of the characters and what goes on there. But essentially, it's this family who inherit this house from their father who's died, and they're trying to sell it, get rid of it, and split the proceeds between themselves. But they every time they come across something with the house, they uncover another problem with it, and it becomes a long, protracted process that tests their relationships as siblings and puts a lot of strain on them. So yeah, I tried to make it a little bit comic. I mean, I mean, one of my brothers actually, when he reads all my books, he says they're all comic. He thinks he thinks they're all hilarious, but I don't always intend to come out with, comic stuff, but
But
comedic
that's the best way for it
stuff.
to
But yeah,
happen, really.
yes, yeah, that's
And
right. You don't
even
want to force it. You don't want to force it. Yeah,
no,
yeah,
and you don't want it to be punchline style where
yeah, yeah.
everybody's sense of humor is kind of different. So, but when it just naturally comes out of the writing, and even through open doors, even though that's a very serious subject,
Mm,
it has comedic elements to it that really
yes.
land well because
Mm,
you're really in the middle when you're in the middle of a serious subject and there's some comedic atmosphere added to it. It really stands out, but it stands out in a really positive way. It's very subtle. It's subtle, but it's there.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's not a bad thing at all. So I haven't read the Gaff, but that gets me even more interested in it. So
Yeah,
there's
yeah,
that, and then
yeah.
your latest, the Fragment from the Shroud.
That's
And
right.
if
Yeah.
you listen to the title, as I said, you listen to the title, you look at the cover. And you immediately think the Shroud of Turin, and
Yeah.
actually the image on the cover is subtle. It's not, and it's there. And to somebody who has seen a photo of the Shroud of Turin, it does stand out.
Mm.
But talk about the Fragment from the Shroud. Are you to begin with? Any? Are you a Catholic, Marek?
Yes. Yeah.
There's,
Yeah. Cradle Catholic. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
but
Yeah. From born into it. Yeah.
the the fragment, the Shroud of Turin is of interest not just to Catholics but any Christians, correct?
Mm. Yeah. I think
Not
so.
everybody
Yeah.
believes in it.
Yeah.
I get that. Some
No.
say
No.
no, but it's been
Yeah.
carbon dated and all that, and it sounds.
Yep.
What are your
Yep.
thoughts on? Actually, let me ask you that at the end of this. Let me ask you
Sure.
that after you give everybody a synopsis of the fragment from the Shroud.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, well, the main character, the protagonist, is a private detective called Albert Poniatowski. Um, and some keen historians of Polish history will recognize the surname because that's the surname of the last king of Poland. So Poland, as we all know, no longer has a royal family, as a lot of European countries no longer do. But Poland was one of perhaps the more earlier ones to have lost their royal family. But anyway, so he's descended from Polish royalty, and he lives in London, and he's a private detective who has this small agency. It's just him, and he only specializes in finding missing items or missing people. And I sort of came up with the idea of this character in the hope that I could maybe write a small series or a longer series of novels, stories based around him and his agency, his exploits. Because I quite like the idea of having a character and developing the character, and then you don't have to go back to the drawboard when you start writing another story because the character's there. You could just jump straight into it if you know what I mean. Um, so yeah, so he is approached by a priest who claims to have had a small fragment of the Shroud of Turin, as you say, Mike, stolen from his chapel in London. So Albert agrees to allow this priest to engage his services. He's a bit skeptical. I guess you could describe as an agnostic, and I sort of based him a bit on the hardboiled fiction characters from the 20s, the 30s, and 40s in America. Your Philip Marlowe's and that kind of
Yes.
character. So he drinks a lot. He's maybe a bit of a womanizer, not shy of using a bit of violence. Knows a few shady characters here and there. Um,
And it has some martial arts background, right? Because he delivers
right.
some good sidekicks and such.
Yeah, that's right. Well, yeah, he does Savat. So the French martial art. Have you heard of that one, Mike? Yeah,
I have
Savat.
not.
Yeah, Savate. Yeah, it's like a form of kickboxing essentially. Yeah, it's quite. I guess if you look at it on YouTube and stuff, you can sort of quite quickly find a few videos of it. But yeah, it's essentially a form of French kickboxing. High kicks in the ring and punches or what have you. Yeah, I thought it was a sort of a nice European martial art for him to learn rather than something Eastern because he's very steeped in Western culture,
Yes.
and being descended from royalty, he's still had quite a good education, especially given to him by his grandfather. Although I allude to his grandfather a little bit in the novel, but his grandfather was a major figure in his life, and had very old-fashioned views of the world and how it should be and what have you. And that's sort of been instilled into Albert's psyche. So yeah, it's a bit of a complicated character, but anyway, he goes on this chase for the shroud, and yeah, I think things sort of fall into his lap a bit. So it's not
Yeah,
so much
he
about
gets some
his
lucky
great.
breaks. He does get
Yeah,
some
that's
lucky
right. Yeah,
breaks.
it's not his great detective skills that get him to where he is in the end, but yeah, he eventually finds this fragment and gets it returned to him, but he has to deal with a Russian some Russian gangsters who are also trying to get a hold of it throughout the novel. And
You can
I thought
imagine
this,
the value. You can imagine the value
yeah,
of such a thing.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
have to say that the priest did not do a great job of securing it, which is not surprising that it got stolen.
Well, exactly. Yeah, I mean, it's yeah, pretty poor effort. Yeah, but I think towards the end he installs some security around it or whatever.
Yes.
But uh, but yeah, I think he was maybe a bit naive. This priest and didn't expect anybody to steal it. But yeah, he claims that it's a piece of the original shroud, and the way he got hold of it was because um, I can't remember which century it is now, but I think at some point there was a fire. Long time ago now. There was a fire, and some of the shroud was sort of fixed by some nuns. Apparently, I think. I should have this at the tip of my fingers, but I don't, Mike. Sorry. But anyway,
No, not at
so
all. I
a
know.
few
I mean,
centuries ago,
one
yeah,
blurs into the next one, and you're working on,
yeah,
I'm sure, another one, which we'll talk about
yeah,
shortly.
yeah. So essentially, this piece of the shroud had come off when these nuns were fixing the shroud after it had been burnt in the Middle Ages. I think it's in the Middle Ages, and it got transported here and there. Eventually, ended up in England with a rich aristocratic family in England, and it somehow found its way through a parishioner to this priest who kept it as a relic.
The priest is Father Benedict Hobbs. He's the man in the
Yes,
middle. In fact, let
yeah.
me read the first two sentences of the novel. It goes like this. The priest arrived at 11 a.m. on the dot. He was wearing an old-fashioned cassock, holding a cappello romano under one arm and a neat black leather satchel in the other. And then it talks about his black shoes polished very, very to a high gloss and so on. And yeah, he comes to Detective Albert Poniatowski um, to get back what belongs to him. And he gets and Albert gets the help of a young woman who
Yes.
he tried to basically hold at bay. Look, this is a danger to you. I don't want you to get wrapped up on this. She really wasn't one to take no for an answer. I think she was intrigued by she was drawn to the intrigue of the whole thing and
Mm.
decided to help in her own way. And yeah, it gets very it becomes an entanglement of sorts. What else would you tell readers about the
Yeah.
novel? And
I
do you
think,
consider it a novel or a novella? This one is let me just look at the page count. You're
yeah,
talking
I'd,
about
I'd call it a,
182 pages.
yeah, I'd call it a novel. Yeah, I'd classify it as a novel. I can't remember what the word count comes to off the top of my head, but I'd say it's
Full scale
a
novel.
novel.
When you pick it up, it feels like a full scale novel too. Yeah, short novel, but on much like Kurt Vonnegut would write novels that were short in length, but
Mm.
they
Yeah.
were novels. I know you've written some novellas as well, but this one I think weighs in well above, for instance, Through Open Doors, which was truly a novella. That one
Yeah.
was much
No.
shorter.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think I mean, what else could I tell you about it? I guess I try to make it sort of character driven. So it's not like we were saying earlier, a lot of things fall into Albert's laps, and he doesn't
He's not
express
Sherlock
any.
Holmes, right?
Yeah, well, precisely. Yeah, I used to love Sherlock Holmes when I was a kid. Actually, I used to read all his all Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's novels, and there's a good TV series about it. I can't remember who the actor was, but um, and Robert Downing Jr. did a good movie, didn't he? I think the
Yes,
first one
yes,
was pretty good.
he really did.
Yeah. But anyway, kind of things fall into his lap, and this lady you talk about is called Elise Szydłowska. Sorry, Szydłowska, and again, keen historians of Polish history will recognize the surname because it's a lady that the last king of Poland, Poniatowski, he was a bit of a womanizer himself, and this is one of the ladies that he had some relations with, shall we say. He wasn't, I don't think it was ever established whether he had any children, but I sort of play with history a bit and artistic license and just presume that he did with this woman. And Elise Szydłowska, sorry, is just a nod to the last king of Poland and his sort of womanizing and what have you. But so it's just a sort of a link with the past as well. But she goes along with him and teases out a bit more of his character. So he very much likes to work alone. I wouldn't call him a misogynist, but he thinks that
Maybe chauvinist, chauvinist, but
yeah,
not
chauvinistic.
misogynist.
Doesn't really think that his line of work is for a lady, shall we say. He's very stubborn, so he gets into a lot of trouble, with the Russian mafia and also the Italian mafia as well, because some of it's set in Italy. He's very stubborn and tries to get to
this
the
is
bottom
Albert's
of it.
debut. Is that right?
Yes, that's right. Yeah,
So is it presumably okay? You've introduced this new character. I presume he will be a repeat character, kind of like Travis
that's what I'm
McGee
hoping.
was used by John D. McDonald that wrote all those Travis
Right.
McGee novels. Now I don't know. Obviously he wrote I think dozens, but I don't know if you're planning to take Albert to that. For the rest of your writing career, but
Well, I'm hoping to. Yeah, I'm hoping to use them in a few more stories. I mean, I've just been to Thailand on holiday, and I'm hoping to my next one to. I've got sort of the nebulous, the small, the embryo of an idea, and my idea is that like I said, it's all a bit in the clouds at the moment, but my idea is that he's looking for a missing person, and that eventually lands him in Thailand. I'm not sure why, but I thought Bangkok would be a good place,
yes.
a good scene, a good setting for some of his exploits. I'm definitely hoping to write a few more Albert Poniatowski novels if I get the time and the inspiration to do so.
Now, let me ask you about, now you've explained that I didn't understand that the last king of Poland was named Poniatowski. I was going to say, though, that you take Travis McGee or Sam Spade, simple names. Albert Poniatowski is not a simple name. Did you hesitate at all thinking maybe I should make this simpler, something that rolls off the tongue more easily, is easier to repeat? Was that, what about that? What was your calculation there?
Do you know, it's funny you say that because one of my friends was going back to the Dojang. He said to me, why did you call Piotr, the main protagonist? Why did you call him Prot? Why don't you just give him an easier name to pronounce? It's just a bit of a stumbling block because it's written Piotr, and unless you speak Polish or know or have come across the name, there's a bit. You kind of read it, and because it's not familiar to a lot of English readers, they think, "Oh, what's this?" And and I've never really been one for making names easier. I guess I don't know. I wanted that clear link with Joseph Poniatowski, the last king of Poland, who died in the early 19th century. I didn't. I guess
I get it. I get it. You bring some history. I don't know how many people know that. That's why I still once you said that, it's like, okay, I get the basis for the name.
Yeah,
But then I
yeah,
started to think, well, how many people really know that?
yeah. I don't
And
make
there's
it
many people.
explicit. I don't make it
Yeah,
explicit.
no,
So
you
yeah,
actually
yeah,
don't. That's
yeah.
true. Although
Mm.
there's always time to do that. The character develops as you go
Yeah,
along.
yeah, yeah.
For instance, your next piece of work, which is it an Albert Poniatowski novel that you're working on now? The one that's going to end up, maybe not necessarily end up, but going to travel to Bangkok?
Well, that's probably the next one I'm going to start. But the one I'm editing at the moment is called the Anchorite. So anchor and then ITE at the end, which is
Anchorite, okay.
yeah,
The
an
Anchorite.
anchorite is another name for a hermit. So so I live not too far away from like a national park, a kind of preserved area called the North York Moors, which is like a barren, like a large sort of barren area, natural sort of area where wildlife is left alone, apart from a few roads that run through it and farms and what have you. But yeah, essentially, it's a large piece of land and is close by to a Benedictine monastery called Ampleforth Abbey. And yeah, going back to your question about my religious affiliation. So when I was, my parents sent me to a school called St. Benedict's up to the age of 16, which is was run by Benedictine monks at the time. And Ampleforth Abbey is linked to it because they're Benedictine monks as well. Anyway, long story short, the Anchorite, the hermit, is a monk who was kicked out of Ampleforth Abbey, this monastery, in the late 50s, early 60s. He had sort of anger management issues. Anyway, he's kicked out, but he's allowed to carry on as a hermit, as an Anchorite. So loosely affiliated with the monastery, but not allowed to step foot on the grounds anymore. And he lives as a hermit out in these North York Moors, this sort of national reserve, if you like, this national park.
Is he homeless or does he have a structure he lives
He
in?
has a structure, yeah. He has a small hut, and he lives there until he gets very poorly, very ill and frail, and he's called back to the monastery by a new monk. A new abbot, the abbot being the leader of the monks. He calls him back, and the whole story basically revolves around him seeing how things have changed so much in the world and in the abbey and in the church in general since his time when he was kicked out. So it's him reflecting on how things have changed, and he's very frail. He's not sort of losing his mental capacity, his faculties as the protagonist does in Through Open Doors, but he's very frail and ill. He I don't sort of I sort of allude to him having an illness that it could be cancer. It's up to the reader to decide. But anyway, it's about his discovery of the modern world essentially after having been a hermit for
wow, okay.
50,
And that's because
55 years or something.
He's treating his ailment. He's looking for
well,
medical intervention.
Yeah, he's not actually doing it, but his the abbot somehow finds out that he's not very well, and he recalls him back to have checks with the doctor, health checks, and he decides that he needs to stay in the abbey and be looked after rather than be left alone to die out on the moors, which can be unforgiving in wintertime.
What is the objective of his being a monk in the solitude and meditation, the prayer meditation? Is it strictly worship of a higher power? Or is he trying to achieve what Hindus and Taoists might call enlightenment?
Yeah, good question.
Or is that left to the reader to decide?
No, I think you could discern it from the story. So he's definitely preserves his schedule that he would have had as a monk. So getting up in the night to pray, sing Gregorian chant or what have you, offer the mass in his small hut and pray. He's very much a very prayerful life, so he's praying all the time for different people. He has contact with a farmer who lives not too far from him, and the reason he has contact with him is simply to get supplies. It's an arrangement that was set up originally through the monastery and this farming family, and they're happy to provide supplies, basic food, and and a like diesel for a generator that he needs to cook food and stuff.
Right.
Anyway, so he gets for some reason this farm also gets prayer requests, and then the farmer gives them to the monk, and he spends a lot of his time in prayer and solitude. Yeah, yeah.
No, the Anchorite is scheduled. If all goes as planned, it will be on the market when?
Hopefully within the next couple of months. Yeah, I
Okay,
mean,
so very close. Okay.
yeah, it should have been sooner, but you know how it is with these things, Mike. It's
It always takes time. Although
yeah,
you're producing at a good clip, I will say that, Marek. You're
yeah,
definitely
thanks.
producing at a good clip. You write at night, which is
Yeah,
unusual. I would, I mean,
yeah,
that's just practicality maybe for you because you have a full-time job as an editor,
yeah,
magazine
yeah.
editor, and most people seem to get up unless they're uh, self-supporting in some way. They tend to get up in the morning and use those early hours, or even if
Mm,
they're self-supporting, like noontime. You do the
mm,
you do it at the end of the day when a lot of
mm,
people's energy bank is running low, but you manage to do it. Is there
mm.
any talk a little bit about why the end of the day and whether what the challenges to it are?
Yeah, I think I just I don't find it easy to like do short bursts here and there during the day when I might have an opportunity to write something. So for some reason, I'm just never been able to work like that when it comes to fiction stuff. I can do that with work, changing from one thing to another. But with the fiction, I just like to be totally focused on that for a solid chunk of time. So whatever that might be, it doesn't have to be a massive amount of time. And I read somewhere that I can't remember who it was now. It was another novelist, but he said that writing early in the morning or late at night is the best time to do it because some people's critical faculties within their brain or something switches off, and then you just kind of just go for it. So you almost have or
Yes.
not a stream of consciousness, but you just get the words out and you don't look at them too much and think to yourself, oh, hang on a second, what am I doing here? Which is one of the most important things, isn't it? You want to get the
Yeah.
first draft down and done.
I think that might be
Um,
Gail Godwin. Was it Gail Godwin who said she's
I
one of
don't
the people
know.
who
Right.
suggested well, I'm sure it came from more than one person, but I know she
Yeah.
suggested right when you're tired for
Okay.
exactly
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
reason, because your
Okay.
your
Okay.
your
Yeah.
internal sensor is lazy by that point.
That makes sense. Yeah, right when you're tired. Precisely. Yeah, yeah. Okay. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, tired but sober.
Yeah, I
Or,
can totally
or was
relate to.
it someone really famous? I don't know if it was Hemingway or someone. Didn't they say write when you're sober, edit? No, sorry, write when drunk, edit when sober, or something like that. I mean, I don't recommend doing that, but
No, and I don't know who that was. I don't know who
yeah,
it sounds like it could easily be Hemingway, but it could be
yeah, right.
Fitzgerald too. There's so many writers who are drunks that it could be
Yeah,
any
yeah.
number. So
Um,
I totally relate to this idea that writing in short bursts is not, for instance, if I have 5 minutes that I could take a look and kick out a phrase or a sentence or two. I'm not that kind of writer. I agree with you. I want a defined chunk of time that where I can focus fully on it and do
mm,
that rather
mm,
than try to snatch, catch as catch can, 5 minutes here, 15 minutes there. I want a solid, at least 30 minutes.
right,
If
right.
better if there's more. But life is busy, so that's always a challenge.
Yeah,
Let
yeah,
me ask you
yeah.
about how your writing has evolved over time from that first one, um,
Mm.
from the Dojang to the Fragment and the Shroud. How has your writing evolved? What do you think?
Oh, good question. Yeah. Well, I'd like to think it's maybe become a little better than it was. Um,
Has it changed stylistically? Has it changed?
uh,
Does it get any easier? Let's start with that. Does it get any easier? Do you feel like, hey, look, it's just the nature of writing. It's a struggle,
yeah,
no matter how many years you put in?
yeah. It definitely gets easier in terms of you know what you're doing and as in things don't have to be perfect. So it's a bit like I was saying earlier. As you were saying. turn off that turn off the critic inside your head, and just get the first draft done. I struggled to get the first draft done with the Dojang. I kept changing it and going back to it and switching this and that, whereas I should have just gone straight out and got a first draft out. I think that's really important. I think even if you're struggling with the story and you want to switch things up, for me, it's better just to try and push through. So I've learned that sort of perseverance and how to do that. And yeah, hopefully I've picked up if maybe I've tried to get rid of some of the cliches in my writing and try to not rely so much on other influences and try to create my own voice, if you like. It's a bit of a cliche, isn't it? But to try to have something that resembles a bit of my writing style. I think I have it best in my novellas, actually, when I write in the first person and also when I write in the present tense. So I seem to have a bit of a style there with the others like Fragment from the Shroud. I try to keep things quite succinct now, and make it easier on the reader. So although I try to keep things hidden, we were talking about earlier that I don't really make it clear that Albert Poniatowski is descended from Józef Poniatowski, the last king of Poland. You can infer it from the text. It's not really that hidden. It's there, but I don't make it explicit. So I try to make the story easier for the reader, so do the work for them. So I don't really like novels where every second page or every third paragraph I have to pick up a dictionary and look up a word or reread a really long sentence again. So that's more.
You don't want to write dense or complicated. Your writing is very accessible. It's very accessible.
Yeah. I think a lot of that. I do like some of that literary stuff, but for me, it's not really me. So I don't. I try to as you say, make it more accessible for the reader and try to encourage a lot of readers to get into it. I have a reader in mind actually, which is mostly, to be honest, is men, so young men and middle-aged men, because I remember reading a long time ago now that, like, in Italy, like less than 10% of men or something read books or fiction or something like that, which I thought was a real shame, because I think there's so much you can learn from reading fiction. So I try
including empathy.
Right, very exactly. Yeah. So
is your next one a novella or a full-scale novel?
So the Anchorite is definitely a novella, yes, yeah. And then the next one, the next Albert Poniatowski one will be another novel, and then I'm toying with another idea, which is probably too much to go into now, but
we're running a little short on time, but. But what is the calculation between novel and novella? Is it simply that you look at a subject and just decide I can fully flesh this thing out in 100 pages versus 200 or 250 pages? Or are you trying to get more? You sound like a guy who has or can generate ideas pretty readily, Marek. So maybe it's kind of like, if I keep it short, I can bring a lot more of these ideas to fruition versus, doing a 500-pound novel that takes 3.5 years.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, actually, I think you might have hit the nail on the head, actually, Mike. I've not actually thought about it too much, but that makes sense. Yeah, because I do have a lot of ideas, and there's loads I've shelved and have never seen the light of day. So I think that might be it. So novella, I find all my novellas I write in the present tense, and I find it for some reason easier to write in that sense. And when I know it's a novella, it gives me an extra bit of motivation or propulsion or acceleration or whatever the word is, to get it done. So because I know I'm only aiming for, as I say, 20,000 words or whatever, I can really push myself to try and get it done as quickly as possible. So I guess that's another driver. But yeah, I like to get those ideas out there. So yeah.
I get it. Well, Marek, congratulations on the new book, and best of luck with your next one. The Anchorite is hopefully just a couple months away, and I really appreciate you taking the time. Very thoughtful Yeah, there are things about your writing that were thoughtful, your characterizations that were thoughtful that I didn't even realize what they were rooted in. But now we know, and I'm going to
Yeah.
look for those clues more in the future, given that that's your proclivity. Thanks for coming on the program.
Oh no, thanks so much for inviting me on again, Mike. It's been great. I really appreciate it. Thank you.